So you've managed to catch me at this hour. I honestly thought I was about to fade out again. Tonight, I won't bother guessing where your right foot is resting. I heard the comment bot has been updated to version 6.0. Now you just need to long press, swipe to the emoji, and send it instantly. So I'll guess whether there's a bot lurking in my comments. All right, enough rambling. Let's get straight into tonight's bedtime story. Up next is an old friend we haven't seen in ages, Xiao Mei, a 29-year-old girl from Japan. Today, she once again boldly took over half a mountain, a silent place without water or toilets. And so, her first task was to create a suitable camping ground. The site. She remembered how complicated the tent structures were last time. And that frustrating trial and error feeling was still vivid, clear as day, to avoid another disaster. This time, Xiao Mei came fully prepared. She spent ages at home watching setup tutorials. But even with that practice, the actual process was still full of clumsy moments, hands and feet all over the place. Still, in the end, relying on memory, she managed to get it assembled. After all, it was winter, and in the freezing air, you still had to give the season its due respect. But Xiao Mei, rushing out the door, forgot to bring the stove. So she rummaged around and found the firewood heater she'd prepped in the sauna room. It was simple, but the setup wasn't much different from a normal stove. She just had to connect the chimney sections until they stood tall like a pillar. Next, she pulled out today's hidden gem, a brand new folding chair. As she assembled it, she explained that because of her back, she needed solid lumbar support when sitting. So, the design turned out to be perfect for her needs. With that, all the basic camping gear was ready. Next came her favorite part, something she really enjoyed. Those who often watch Xiao Mei's camping know that in the wild, the one thing she throws herself into wholeheartedly is chopping wood. By now, she'd mastered it through experience. Her skills were second nature. This time, there were no slip-ups, and the wood was neatly split. Once the fire was lit, the flames flickered in the air, and that was the moment she'd been waiting for. Picnic time, even though it was the middle of a cold winter. Who could resist an ice-cold wheat juice? On a day like this, smoke curled slowly from the chimney through the pipes. As Xiao Mei crossed her legs leisurely, leaning back on her freshly assembled chair, it felt as if the whole world stood still just for her. With the appetizer sorted, Xiao Mei's taste buds were fully awakened. Her cravings began to stir as well. Next, she prepared an 8-inch pizza. Because of its size, she decided to enjoy it with a half-and-half combo. One side topped with rich meat sauce, the other with flavorful chicken pieces. Most people would go for a mix of meat and veggie, but Xiao Mei preferred an all-meat feast. To stop it from being too heavy, she sliced up some onion for balance, then sprinkled on a thick layer of cheese, and added other toppings for decoration, making the pizza look even more tempting. Just like that, the fresh, glistening pizza was ready. Now Xiao Mei just needed to let it bake slowly in the fire. After about an hour, it would be ready to serve. As expected, the wood-fired base turned out a little charred, but luckily the taste and look weren't too bad. And when you've cooked it yourself, you'll eat it no matter what. As a boxer, one pizza was hardly enough to fill her stomach. So, Xiao Mei decided to bake another one something unusual. This time, her second pizza carried her wild imagination. She first crushed cashews with a hammer, then added some bouncy pudding, spreading it evenly. Around the edges, she placed a ring of marshmallows. In between, she tucked in delicate little chocolates. One had to admit, Xiao Mei's execution was impressive. Even if she had no idea how it might taste, her bold imagination fit her character perfectly. Smoke billowed from the chimney as she sat back in her chair carefree. Little did she know she was in for a surprise. When Xiao Mei eagerly opened it, she found that because of the pudding, all the moisture had completely evaporated. Holding back laughter, she cautiously took a bite. Though the taste was overly sweet and the texture a bit odd, who would have thought that making pizza would require a final step of reducing the sauce? So you've managed to catch me at this hour. I honestly thought I was fading into obscurity again. Tonight, I won't bother guessing where your left foot is resting. I heard the comment bot has been updated to version 6.0. Now you just need to long press and swipe the emoji to send it instantly. So I'll guess whether there's a bot lurking in my comments section. All right, enough chit-chat. Let's dive straight into tonight's little bedtime story. Up next is a familiar old friend of ours, Xiao Mei, a 29-year-old woman from Japan. With work easing up towards the end of the year, she found the time to head out camping once again. However, the cramped car space has always been a struggle for her. Each time she went in, she had to fold the back seats down. Fortunately, Xiao Mei has earned the title of a space management master. Before long, what was once a messy car was neatly organized under her hands. The freed up space was just enough for her to sit cross-legged. As night fell, the outside temperature dropped to minus 15 degrees. As a night shift worker, her body clock had long been upside down. Her eating schedule was a complete mess, so after work, she always needed to grab a quick bite for energy. It's worth noting that with year's end approaching, every store was running sales and promotions. This made the frugal Xiao Mei unable to resist the urge to shop. During this trip, she bought a brand new thick blanket to brace for the bitter winter ahead. In such cold weather, hot pot was the most fitting meal. And cabbage, of course, is the soul of hot pot. Xiao Mei first chopped it into neat pieces, then pulled out the shop assistant's highly recommended pickled ginger. They said once it's added to the hot pot, it makes the broth taste even richer. With all the side dishes ready, all she needed was to pour in enough water, wait until tiny bubbles began rising, and then put the sliced ingredients in one by one. So on a freezing winter's day, having a steaming hot pot is without doubt one of life's greatest comforts. Leaning back, the rich aroma filled the small cabin. Along with the satisfaction from the hot pot, the cold suddenly felt much gentler. Now it's time for a quick tidy up to get ready for the work ahead. As a night shift worker, Xiao Mei's lifestyle was completely different from most people's. She always used the daytime to record videos for everyone, and when night came, she returned to her busy job, carrying on with the grind of the workplace. So you've managed to catch me at this hour. I honestly thought I was about to fade away again. Tonight, I won't bother guessing where your left foot is resting. Same old rule if you see this, drop a comment. Or maybe leave a few words on the right with your reaction. All right. Enough rambling. Let's jump straight into tonight's stress-relieving bedtime skit. The story begins. A customized camper van slowly rolled forward, driving onto a flat stretch of land. In front of us was an old friend we hadn't seen in a while, Shizuka, a 30-year-old independent woman from Japan. Today, she drove a 3-square-meter light truck she'd converted for camping. The highlight of this vehicle was none other than its windows. Windows everywhere. Though the space wasn't big enough for reckless freedom, luckily she was a master of time management. Every piece of gear was purchased to fit and adjust with precision. Though small, the space had everything it needed to chase the best camping experience. Shizuka specifically picked up discounted items from the convenience store. With winter arriving, temperatures kept dropping. Before her picnic, she had to light the indoor fireplace, not only to keep warm later, but also to cook food. And because the camper space was compact, it only needed to burn briefly before the warmth was felt. This meant Shizuka dressed lightly, wouldn't feel the chill, After that, she placed a pizza into the fireplace's bottom drawer to bake. Baking away. After 10 minutes of cooking, she could finally enjoy today's appetizer, easing the mood. For those who often watch the Delicate Girl camping series, Shizuka's style of camping may not be as fancy as Xiao Mei, but her way of camping shows the truest everyday experience. So everyone's camping style has its own unique flavor. While talking, the sky had already started to darken. The light spilling from the camper stood out strikingly against the quiet night. And since Shizuka had no plans for entertainment, she began preparing dinner. As she's been dieting lately, wanting to surprise her family before New Year, her meals in this period focused mainly on low-fat dishes. Tonight's food wasn't going to take long. She first made a veggie salad with avocado and cherry tomatoes, then put the prepped chicken into the pan. After all, chicken has far less fat than pork. This way, Shizuka could enjoy it without feeling guilty. And the cooking process was very simple. Just keep stir-frying until the chicken was evenly heated and add some seasoning along the way. But what Shizuka loved most was still her fondness for rice. She always liked to press the rice into triangular onigiri, then wrap it with cling film. Only once everything was ready would she finally start eating. Maybe it's because she's a true blue Japanese girl, but after a meal, she always fancies a glass of wheat juice to soothe her throat. It feels like only then can the dinner come to a perfect close. Still, unlike Xiao Mei, she doesn't chase the buzz of being tipsy, just the occasional small sip. Even so, when it comes to being careless, Shizuka is just the same as Xiao Mei.
So you can still catch me at this hour. I thought I was about to fade out again. Tonight, I won't guess where your left foot's resting. I heard the bot-style comments have updated to version 5.5. Just press and hold. Slide to the emoji and send it quickly. So I'll just guess whether there are any bots in my comments. Alright. No more rambling. Let's dive straight into tonight's bedtime story. Carrying a heavy pack is our new friend in the camping series, a young girl from Ukraine, Sia. Since childhood, she's dreamed of her love for nature, so every time she heads into the wild to seek new experiences. Today, she stepped into Ionia's eastern tropical rainforest. The forest floor was covered with mushrooms of all kinds. But if she wanted a picnic again, she'd have to read her guide to edible plants. As she went deeper, the scenery all looked the same, so she decided to set up camp there. From that bulging backpack, it was clear things weren't simple. She pulled out a neatly packed portable tent and spread it evenly on the ground. Then she pulled out a Miles-style axe. For this trip, she had sharpened the blade until it gleamed like a mirror, clear enough to reflect Sia's face. Unlike most other campers, who still relied on ready-made kits in the wild, Sia preferred to trust in the bonds of fate. And these small branches before her just happened to serve as perfect supports for the frame. After the two small sticks were smoothed down, Sia promptly drove the ground pegs into the soil to keep them secure. Being in a tropical rainforest, the earth all around was damp, which made her setup go very smoothly. Before long, the tent was up. Next, she shaped the treated sticks into little spearheads, then threaded them through the preset holes in the tent. At the other end of each spearhead, tied it off tightly with rope. That way, the tent was anchored firmly in the ground. She then folded the side flaps neatly and moved on with the rest of the camp chores. The wood shavings from shaping those small sticks turned out perfect as kindling to start the fire. No wonder she's from the nation of warriors. Her sense of ritual is truly unmatched. Even the flatbreads she makes come in endless varieties, with the appetizers sorted smoothly. It's time to prepare properly for tonight's camping. As mentioned earlier, Sia's camping is all about going with the flow. The reason he chose to camp here again is because this land is rich in fungi, even though some mushrooms can be dangerous. As the saying goes, nothing ventured, nothing gained. So he picked those mushrooms. That didn't look very appealing. As people say, the prettier it looks, the more likely it deceives you. The more colorful, the more toxic it often is. After half an hour of collecting, his backpack was already packed to the brim. Since nights in the rainforest can drop below zero, Sia's task now was to light the fireplace first. He rolled the tin chimney together, then slotted it into the tent's reserved hole. The other end connected straight to the fireplace outside. Once fitted, it was time to gather fuel. And in the forest, you may lack many things, but timber is never in short supply. Before long, he had gathered enough fuel. Meanwhile, the sky was gradually darkening. The surroundings grew increasingly chilly. Without hesitation, Shia lit the fireplace first. Thick smoke rose from the chimney, bringing with it a sense of safety. Now it was time to start preparing tonight's picnic. He took out the mushrooms he had picked, then began slicing up the large cut of meat he'd brought. The remaining staple food was cut into even slices as well. Since the meat had already been marinated, it was perfect for a quick stir-fry. While waiting for the flavors to settle, he started working on those tricky mushrooms. Because fungi are not easy to cook through, they need to be stir-fried for a long time. After half an hour of cooking, night had fully fallen. The chill of the evening seeped freely into the tent. Sia had no choice but to pull down the mesh curtain. Meanwhile, after long simmering, the dishes had become evenly cooked and richly fragrant. So you lot are still catching me at this hour. I honestly thought I was about to fade away again. Tonight, I won't bother guessing whose foot you've ended up on. Heard the bot comment system has rolled out version 4.2. Now you just need to hold down, slide to the emoji, and you can fire it off quick as you like. So I'll just guess whether my comments section has bots in it. Alright, enough rambling. Let's dive straight into tonight's little story. Right now, climbing over mountains is our familiar old friend, a 19-year-old girl from Britain, Chuxiang. To embrace the gritty spirit of youth, she chose to head for Coconut Island. In the cool spring, when the flowers had yet to bloom, the place was littered with jagged rocks, which made it tough going for Chuxiang in her thin clothes. After half an hour of hard trekking, she finally reached an open area. It faced the sea, a perfect spot for camping. But after such a long hike, Chuxiang's clothes were already soaked with sweat. And with the damp sea breeze, she felt uncomfortable. Seeing there was no one around, she decided to dive into the sea for a bracing winter swim. Two hours later, she finally made it safely ashore. After all, swimming for long in -10 degrees isn't something the body can handle well. And anyone who rarely takes long soaks knows, once you've spent all your strength, your body feels drained. So now she set about pitching her tent, just in case she fainted. At least she'd be inside, facing a brand new tent. Chuxiang looked a bit lost at first, especially with the tricky extension poles, which left her a bit overwhelmed. But being young, her mind was still sharp. After a quick look, she soon worked out how to put it all together. As night fell, the little tent was finally set up. On Coconut Island, surrounded by fresh coconuts, Xiang picked a few and placed them around to weigh down the tent. Since it was her first time using a tent, she aired it out to get rid of that strong plastic smell. With her slim figure, she saved both fabric and space. That little barley-sized tent in front of her was more than enough for a good night's sleep. Next up, her first outdoor meal. Today, she'd brought along rich, flavorful beef, the kind with a strong aroma. And to keep it balanced, she'd prepared some onions and tomatoes. Not only would they bring out the taste of the beef, they'd also give her taste buds a proper kick, making her appetite soar. After her meal, Xiang felt a bit bored, so she decided to take advantage of the dark night and head to the riverbank to look for seafood. In the daytime, seafood here was already hard to come by, and at night, with only a faint light, it was even tougher. After stubbornly trying for a while, she finally gave up and went ashore. In the darkness, the ambient light looked especially bright. So you lot are still catching me at this hour. I honestly thought I was about to fade away again. Tonight, I won't bother guessing where your left foot's resting. As usual, if you see this, give me a shout, or just drop a few bot-style comments on the right. Let's dive straight into tonight's bedtime story. Here's Lena, always chasing opportunities in the wild. Today, she's arrived in the tropical rainforest of Ionia. Towering trees rise up as if fighting for the sun's favor. It felt like they were all battling for the spotlight. Before long, she found a sunny spot and decided to set up camp there. As an experienced wilderness scavenger, her first priority was, of course, safety. And from that bulging backpack, you could tell she meant business. Lena slipped on her gloves and grabbed her shovel. Out in the Ionian forest, animal droppings can attract plenty of critters. That can easily mean extra danger, so clearing it out before camping is a must. To block the smell and airflow, Lena covered the patch with grass. Still not quite at ease, she set her tent up nearby. Since the tent was pitched on the lawn, the ground underneath felt a bit stiff. So inside, she needed to lay down a mattress for comfort. Just then, Lena suddenly cut to a bit of handiwork. The scene shifted to her walking down the path. Thanks to a massive dead tree ahead, she gathered up all its branches for firewood. Through the wide-angle lens, we could see the crooked tree hadn't survived the storm. So Lena made good use of it, collecting everything she could. By then, the sky had quietly grown darker. Lena, making use of the twilight, set out to gather more supplies. But aside from endless trees, she found nothing. Just as she was about to give up, she caught sight of something. Strange hair clinging to a tree trunk. A chill ran down her spine. For safety's sake, she returned to camp. There she lit up the firewood she'd gathered. With an open flame like that, any lurking danger would think twice before coming near. The crackling sound of the fire finally gave her a sense of security. At that moment, Lena's wit and resourcefulness shone through. What followed was a time of complete focus, all devoted to the picnic. Earlier we mentioned that when it comes to shelter, she can make do. But with food, she's always meticulous, even here deep in Ionia's tropical rainforest. That sense of ritual in life couldn't be skipped. Today's ingredients were ham, cherry tomatoes, and fried eggs. To enjoy the dust, she carried her meal to the edge of camp. The sunset light streamed through the trees, painting the forest with a dreamy golden edge. Though her plate held only simple food, in that moment she felt utterly content.
So you've managed to catch me at this hour. I honestly thought I was fading into obscurity again. Tonight, I won't bother guessing where your left foot is resting. Same old rule if you see this make some noise. Or just leave a couple of comments on the right. All right, enough rambling. Let's dive straight into tonight's bedtime story. Here we have Lena, who loves seeking chances out in the wild. Today, she's ventured into the tropical rainforest of Ionia. Her feet crunched over golden leaves, scattered by the autumn wind. Looking into the distance, she unexpectedly spotted a standalone cottage not far away. Curious, she decided to head over and take a look. Along the way, branches were covered with oddly shaped fruits, which only deepened Lena's curiosity about this place. But when she arrived, she found it had long lost its former charm. The weathered walls gave off a desolate vibe. She set her backpack down at the door and hesitantly pushed open the wooden door. Though she had braced herself, the scene before her still left her stunned. Dilapidated no longer did justice to this house. After adjusting, she stepped back outside to grab her pack, ready to explore the house's overall layout. She tiptoed along the corridor, and in the corner, she spotted a ladder leading to the attic. Curiosity drove her up the steps. At first, she only meant to take a quick look, planning to leave if things looked bad. But when she lifted the hatch, she was met with an unexpected sight. The attic turned out to be surprisingly spacious. Though the floor was covered in dust, the structure was still intact. In the room stood an old sewing machine, its weathered look giving off a vintage charm. Perhaps the original owner had been a craftsman. Her gaze soon shifted to the balcony on the side. Beyond it stretched an open view. The distant forest lay fully in sight. She could even faintly hear the rustle of wind sweeping through the treetops. After exploring for a while, she gained a rough idea of the house. The next step was to clean up the place. Time slipped by quietly, and before she knew it, afternoon had arrived. After finishing the cleanup, Lena brought up a kerosene lamp from downstairs. In autumn and winter, ice always falls unusually fast, so she needed to be well prepared for the night ahead. Now the task was to seal the windows, with the oiled paper at hand. She had no intention of shivering through the cold night. Once the windows were sealed, the light inside the house dimmed at once. Lena carefully lit the kerosene lamp, and its gentle glow instantly filled the room. The moment carried a touch of romance. Luckily, the former owner had left behind a spring bed. She quickly laid it out, and soon turned her attention to making dinner. Those who know her well all say Lena is truly a meat lover through and through. Every time she goes out, beef is always packed with her. And her cooking style is one of a kind, neither as casual as ordinary campers, nor as fussy as the Delicate Girl Camping series. Watching Lena eat is always a unique visual delight. Every bite she takes is delicate and graceful. For others, it might just seem like an appetizer, but for Lena, it was a full and hearty dinner. Her eating habits seemed to balance perfectly with her slim figure. After finishing dinner, Lena returned to her neatly made bed. She had originally planned to explore and then leave, but the cozy attic made her want to stay the night instead. Her body soon gave in to fatigue, and she drifted into sleep early. Before long, dawn quietly arrived. Sunlight poured through the curtains into the room. Still wrapped in her blanket, Lena slowly woke. After last night's cleanup, the whole place looked fresh and new. Lena had always had the habit of drinking warm water first thing in the morning. she added, the wild fruit she had picked from the balcony yesterday, along with the strange fruit she came across on her walk. She held a cup of homemade fruit tea rich in vitamins and stepped out onto the balcony, gazing at the endless view beyond. This moment was pure relaxation. Afterwards, Lena began packing up her gear, ready to say goodbye to the mysterious old cottage. Her journey of chance encounters was far from over.
Since you've come across me at this hour, mate, you've been caught out again. If I'm not mistaken, you're already lying in bed, with one foot resting on the other. If I guessed wrong, just pretend I never said it. Now immerse yourself in the camping feast. Dark clouds gathered in the sky, and behind the wheel was Xiaomei. Every time after work, she headed out camping. Driving further, she arrived at a tropical rainforest, and once again she booked an entire mountain. The mountain was called Lingjian Mountain. This time, Xiaomei had bought a brand new tent. Remembering the awkward times pitching tents before, she'd practiced at home to give everyone a better experience, constantly rehearsing how to set it up, so she could finish quickly in the field. But plans never quite keep up with reality, and when faced with this two-sided tent, she still felt at a loss. Even after slotting in the support poles, she still couldn't find the outlet hole. A great idea turned into a clumsy act, and regular viewers of Xiaomei's camping know she always runs into trouble setting things up. Since it was her first time using the new tent, she only realized after reading the manual that the tent was meant to hang on the side of the car. If it ever got assembled perfectly while camping, that could only mean she happened to find the right spot by chance. Even Xiaomei couldn't help laughing at herself. What should have been a 10-minute job took half an hour to finish. Then she hammered in nails to secure the tent. At last, this slightly ugly-looking tent was done. For this trip, Xiaomei had bought loads of new gear, including a fox bed that arrived today. Since it was the first time using it, all the parts were brand new, so putting it together was a bit tricky. Paired with the retro lantern's glow, the place felt extra cozy. Before it got dark, Xiaomei decided to nap, as she had come straight from a night shift to camp. By now, she was running low on energy. After 3 hours of sleep, Xiaomei was full of energy and got ready to sip some wheat juice to whet her appetite. With freshly made ice cubes, it was both refreshing and revitalizing. Next came some quirky little habits. To kickstart the appetite, she chose one of the country's stinkiest cheeses. Gotta say, when Xiaomei goes hard, even she scares herself. The small iron stove now provided the heat, and after another chilled drink, she was ready to start dinner. Since mushrooms need prep in advance, she placed matsutake mushrooms on the grill and even brought along local brown rice. Last time she forgot the rice, so this time she bought it nearby in advance. As the saying goes, if the grain isn't cooked through, you're bound to face trouble at night. But this time, Xiaomei's quickly cooked matsutake still had its issues. After the meal, she reflected on today's camping trip. First, the new tent demanded more physical effort, making her spend longer than planned. Second, the matsutake mushrooms were cooked too quickly. Next time, she'll manage her setup time better. And with that, good night, everyone. So you're still catching me at this hour. I thought I was fading into the void again. Tonight, I won't guess whose foot's on top. Heard the comment bots got upgraded to version 4.2. Now just hold down, slide to the emoji and send in a flash. So I'll guess, are there bots lurking in my comments? Alright, enough chatter. Let's dive straight into today's little tale. A long-legged girl walked up, our new mate, a 20-year-old blonde named Mao Mao from Sichuan, Tongqing. Today was her very first camping trip. To get the rawest taste of the outdoors, she hiked 3 kilometers into the remote hills. The space here was wide open, surrounded by birdsong and blossoms. A perfect spot for a base camp. Since it was Mao Mao's first camping go, she was half clueless about the gear. When she unzipped her pack, it was all snacks. As expected, a girl can't resist a bag of crisps. After wolfing them down, it was time to pitch the tent. Though it was her first camp, she'd done plenty of homework and knew her own limits with hands-on skills. So to dodge any awkward setup scenes, she picked an all-in-one pop-up tent. Although this was Mao Mao's first time, before filming she had watched countless tutorials over and over. She'd already nailed the basics of setting up a tent, and soon had it assembled. Noticing lots of little pebbles at the base, she figured she needed a layer underneath. So she lay down a mat on the ground, but since she'd rushed out and forgotten one, she had to use her yoga mat instead. Luckily, she also brought a sleeping bag rod, which would help fend off mossy bites overnight. Then she pulled out her pillow, blew it up by mouth, and thankfully it was small enough that she didn't faint from lack of air. She opened the tent flap to air it out, and once the plastic smell was gone, she skillfully pieced together a folding table, placing it out front ready for a picnic later. Mao Mao's backpack was like a Doraemon's treasure bag, packed with all sorts of cooking gear. Even the seasonings were neatly tucked into tiny bottles. At a glance, you'd think it was a chemistry set, since they looked like lab samples. With these mysterious gadgets out, Mao Mao pulled out a retro-style lantern and officially kicked off the picnic vibe. This time she had potatoes and onions ready. From the way she handled them, you could tell like Lily her hands weren't used to kitchen work. After 10 minutes of chopping, the prep was done. She placed an alcohol block at the bottom of the pot. As a faint flame rose, and she dumped all the bottled seasonings in. As the oil heated up, the chopped ingredients went in one by one. Since this was her first time camping, a lot of the gear wasn't complete. Especially at night, the lantern's light on the table was limited, so Mao Mao had to hold a torch herself. Inside the tent, she savored her first night outdoors. Though dinner on the table was just instant noodles, for Mao Mao, it was more than an ordinary meal. It was her first step in challenging herself. So you've still managed to catch me at this hour. I thought I was about to fade away again. Tonight, I won't guess whose foot's on top of whose. Heard the bot comments have been updated to version 5.2, so I'll trouble you all to drop a few bot-style comments. Alright, enough rambling. Let's dive straight into tonight's bedtime story. Appearing before us is Chuxiang, whom we haven't seen in a while. A 19-year-old lass from Great Britain. After many camping trips, she's grown deeply fond of it. To better soak up the exotic vibe, she chose the towering, majestic mountains as her destination. By her side was her trusty dog on a lead. Seeing the landscape was much the same for 5 kilometers around, she simply decided to camp here. Since the area was overrun with weeds, before pitching the tent, she cleared out the excess growth. Overall, Xuxiang picked the thickest patch of weeds, then pulled gear out of her magic pack. But after tidying up, she realized the original spot was no good, so the tent had to go on the other side. Next, she started slotting in the extendable poles. As the saying goes, to get by in life, you've got to bring a bit of green along. After a frantic burst of effort, the lush green tent was soon standing tall. Though the process was a bit slow, it didn't take away from Chu Qiang's sense of achievement. To keep it from being blown away overnight, she hammered in pegs to hold it firm. All that was left was laying out the bedding inside. When she'd pitched tents on the beach before, tiny stones were always a problem. But here in the mountains, that wasn't an issue. By now, Qiu Xiang was drenched in sweat, but she always carried spare clothes with her. After changing into a crisp white shirt, she looked for the perfect spot to prepare her picnic. From the dazzling array of tools in front of her, it was clear she'd come well prepared this time. If you've stumbled on this video before bed, mate, you're in for it again. If I'm not wrong, you're already tucked up in bed, yeah? And one leg's probably crossed over the other. Now shift into a comfy position, and let's dive into the camping feast together. Here's our old friend Lily today, now finally on holiday. As someone on her own, she saw others gathered with family, while she was left alone. So she came out camping, to settle into her solitude and ease her sadness. Her trembling hands could hardly push the trolley, but she hiked 10 kilometers on foot, crossing rivers and mountains, and stepping over a long river bridge until she reached a lush green meadow. The surroundings were stunning, filled with birdsong and flowers in bloom. She decided right then to camp here. From the gear she brought along, it was clearly a well-planned camping trip, but the wear on her tent showed she hadn't been camping in ages. The most important part of camping is surely the picnic. Anyone who's watched Lily camp before knows she's a whiz in the cooking department, though also the founder of turning good meals into disasters. So to save face this time, she brought along her own pots and pans, just needing the right tools at hand. Camping is about living outdoors, keeping the mind relaxed, and letting stress melt away. So to stay in good spirits, she opted for instant, ready-made meals instead of traditional cooking, and still found it just as stress-relieving. So you've still managed to find me at this hour. I thought I'd faded into obscurity by now. Tonight, I won't bother guessing where your left foot's resting. I heard the auto comments are now up to version 5.2. Just press and hold, slide to an emoji, and you can send it instantly. So I'll guess, are there any bots in my comments? All right, enough chatter. Let's dive straight into tonight's bedtime tale. Before us is Lena, who loves seeking chances in the wild. On her drive, she stumbled upon a shelter ahead, though she had no idea who built it. Still, it was just what she needed in the nick of time. She looked around and saw no one else living nearby. Without hesitation, Lena pushed open the door. The sight inside made her stop in her tracks. A few spoons hung on the wall, an old-fashioned lamp sat on the table, and in the corner was a delicate painting of a house. The window was strung with cotton rope, woven into a simple blind. As time had passed, the place had long lost its homely feel, so before anything else, she'd need to clean it up. Me man. After a quick clean, the room felt much more spacious. The former owner had even crafted a solid wooden mokugyo temple drum for Lena. Having a roof over her head was already a blessing. Others bring tents when camping, but Lena's camping relies entirely on her luck. As a newcomer, she first needed the right tools. She stepped into another room and discovered what looked like a sauna. This instantly lifted Lena's spirit. After all, finding a sauna in the wild was no small feat. But as a bushcrafter passing through, since she'd taken shelter in another's home, she felt compelled to lend a hand to its upkeep and contribute her share. Looking carefully around, she noticed a perfect spot nearby to build a fuel rack. As night quickly fell, she swiftly changed clothes and worked by lamplight to finish the tasks. The framework was already in place, just needing nails at the ends to secure it, so it could hold fuel like a rack. For Lena, alone in the wilderness, her survival skills were second nature by now. She deftly lit the wood and, after a long busy day, finally made time to enjoy her dinner. After devouring her meal, Lena finished her very first meal in the wild. The campfire was still blazing, reminding her of the wall-mounted stove she found earlier. She headed inside and lit the fireplace, but noticed faint drafts around the stove, so she gathered wild grasses to block the gaps. She sealed off the drafts, and once everything was set, she returned indoors, changing out of her damp clothes. Indeed, no one can resist in the cold the comfort of a sauna's warmth. To speed up the heating of the stones, she kept adding fuel. The previous owner had also left useful equipment behind, including an underground water storage system, which kept the supply clean and free from insects, ensuring pure drinkable water. After the sauna, Lena hurried back indoors, pulling the curtains tightly shut. Although the place was remote, she still stayed alert. After changing into fresh, comfortable clothes, she slipped cozily into bed, and before she knew it, a new day had arrived. When Lena opened her eyes, she still felt a little tired. Luckily, the sunlight soon swept away her drowsiness. The first thing she did after waking up was to stack the firewood she had gathered onto the rack. As a guest temporarily staying in someone else's shelter, she knew the importance of courtesy. Then it was time to prepare breakfast. The first meal of the morning always carried a sense of ritual. As the saying goes, eat well in the morning, eat well at noon, and eat well at night. She brought out a fermented ingredient she had carried from yesterday and poured it into a filter cloth, gently squeezing it by hand to extract the liquid. Then she took out today's treasured ingredient, preparing the pork tenderloin before starting on the main dish. She scooped out some cornmeal, added an egg, and kneaded it into medium-sized dough balls. To add a different touch, she also brought out a box of avocado and berries, scooped out the flesh, and set it aside in a bowl. Lena's sense of ritual was no less than anyone else's. Even in the wilderness, she could still prepare a refined breakfast. With the food quickly finished, Lena packed up her tools to leave a good impression on the original owner. She didn't just tidy the place up, but carefully restored everything to how it had been at the start. Seeing the room look brand new, clean and neat, she left the shelter with satisfaction. So you've still managed to catch me at this hour. I honestly thought I was done for again. As usual, give me a shout if you're here, or just drop a quick comment on the right. Alright, enough chit-chat. Let's dive straight into tonight's bedtime story. Before us is Lena wandering aimlessly. She strolls without direction. Suddenly she spots a roof structure up ahead. Driven by curiosity, she decides to go have a look. As she gets closer, a battle-worn house comes into view, and it looks anything but ordinary, though the exterior is dilapidated. Once she steps inside, she finds it's in even worse shape. The war-torn aesthetic is on full display, furniture broken and even the bulbs useless. Yet within miles around, this seems to be the only shelter. Lena believes that with a bit of tidying, it could still be a place to stay. Fortunately, the previous owner didn't cut corners. Although the house is already falling apart, the cement walls are still solid, but the iron bed in front of her looks like it's ready for retirement. Clearly, tonight's plan to stay here has fallen through. Even so, Lena still wanted to fix him a door and some windows, at least so he could find a bit of life again for the time being. Luckily, the original owner left behind some tools, which were bound to come in handy. For those who often watch Lena camping, wherever she goes, she always does her best to fix things up. And from the way she repaired the latch, it's clear she's got some real skills. From the state of the house's damage, it's easy to tell. The previous owner hadn't been here in ages. Lena, being kind to the end, decided to clear away the weeds around the entrance. After a rough cleanup, Lena carried on with her stroll. As she walked, she noticed apples hanging on a tree. As the saying goes, a bit of dirt won't hurt you. Out here in such a desolate place, coming across fruit feels like a real win. With everything now prepared, it was finally time for today's picnic. Even though the bunker-level house was hard to accept at first, thankfully the surrounding trees could provide plenty of help. While this iron bed wasn't fit to sleep on tonight, using it as a makeshift table wasn't a bad choice at all. Even if today's attempt didn't go smoothly and she hadn't found a proper shelter, when it came to good food, Lena was never one to shortchange herself about it. Miss Five. After finishing the meal, the sky had already begun to darken. Although leaving now felt a little regretful, that old spring bed was just too tempting to have a bounce on. Even though it was well past retirement age, the springs still had plenty of resistance. After fulfilling that little wish, he slung on his backpack and stepped out of the house, continuing his wander towards the next unknown place.
So you lot are still catching me at this hour. I honestly thought I was about to fade out again. Tonight I won't bother guessing where your left foot's resting. Heard the bot comment system's been updated to version 5.0. Now you just need to hold down, slide to the emoji and send it off quick as you like. So I'll just guess whether my comments section has bots lurking. Alright, enough rambling. Let's dive straight into tonight's little bedtime story. Right in front, lugging a heavy pack is our old mate Rue. Last time out camping, Rue got careless and lost his trolley. Now he's left hauling all the gear by hand. And today he's got even more kit than usual. With no other choice, he had to look for a nearby camping spot. The pile of rocks ahead made for a decent sight. Though the terrain was good, the thick weeds all around were bound to harbor moths, bugs, and even mice. So he needed to get a tent up quickly. Thanks to his growing camping skills, pitching a tent was no longer a big challenge. What once took him half an hour, he could now sort out in just a few minutes. And soon enough, the setup was done. He drove the pegs into the ground to hold it all steady. While using an all-in-one tent outdoors is no doubt more convenient, it inevitably comes with a few drawbacks, especially since the bottom of the tent is quite thin, making comfort a bit lacking. Once the tent was set up, she started sorting out the rest of the camping gear. She quickly assembled the table and chairs as well. Next, Rue pulled today's ingredients from that bulging bag. As part of her Camping in Style series, Rue always kept an eye on her weight. Every time she shopped for ingredients, she gave it serious thought, making sure to choose foods that wouldn't load up on calories. It's clear that during this period of camping, her handling of food had improved a lot. After finishing the refreshing fruit salad, she moved on to preparing today's main meal, looking at the spread of gear she had laid out.
It was clear this dish wasn't going to be simple. She first set up the portable tower gas stove with ease, then took out a bottle of Farmer and Snake spring water and poured it into the pot. Once it boiled, she added in a packet of buckwheat noodles. Anyone who doesn't usually eat buckwheat noodles knows they can be a bit bland and tough to swallow. But for many who care about health and losing weight, buckwheat noodles have long been a staple on their menu. And as a girl from eastern Guangdong, chili was of course a must. After a slow chew and swallow, she finally finished eating. And then, as mentioned earlier, the all-in-one tent had a thin base, which should really have had a mattress laid down. But this time she hadn't brought one, so a yoga mat had to do as a temporary substitute, at least softening the hard ground a little. So you lot can still catch me at this hour. I honestly thought I was about to fade away again. As usual, if you see this, drop a quick hello, or just leave a bot-style comment on the right. Just hold down and slide to the emoji, and you can fire it off quickly. Alright, enough chit-chat. Let's dive straight into tonight's bedtime story. In the distance came Lena, who loved to wander. Most of the houses she'd explored earlier were full of war-torn vibes. So today she tried her luck in the hills, but after hiking all day, all she found were endless plains. At last, after a tough trek, she spotted an old rundown house. Even from the outside, the structure was obvious. Up close, she noticed it carried a hand-style feel. Seeing the windows made Lena frown. She knew it wasn't going to be simple. With unease, she reached for the door. The moment she stepped in, she was hit by a strong hand-style atmosphere. But as she walked further in, she found it actually had a one-bedroom layout. Yet the deeper she went, the clearer it became. Inside was worse than outside. Still within 100 miles, this seemed to be the only shelter around. So like it or not, she had to spend the night here. To make the place a bit more livable, she decided to give it a proper cleanup. First, she had to get rid of the overgrown weeds. The fact that grass could even sprout from concrete floors said a lot about how filthy and neglected it was. Even though Lena had been busy from afternoon till night, she only just managed to clear out the dust inside. That alone showed how bad the rubbish buildup was, like a mini rubbish tip. And since it was an abandoned house, the curtains were long gone. Thankfully, there was plenty of fabric around, so covering things up wasn't a problem. Lena noticed a pile of mud bricks nearby. Though there weren't many, it was enough to piece together a makeshift table. Because the place had been empty for so long, even with coarse fabric blocking out the chill, it still felt cold and unwelcoming. So she climbed onto the roof to find the chimney spot. Luckily, the pipe opening hadn't been damaged, and with a restart, it could still be used. Then Lena found 2 planks, laid the mud bricks flat and pieced them into a table. As the cleanup was finally wrapping up, Lena realized she hadn't eaten since discovering the house. Even in the so-called romantic setting, she began preparing her first meal of the day. Her regular viewers all know she's always loved making dough-based foods. This time, on a whim, she decided to make a few croissants to treat herself. While the dough was left to rise, Lena kept busy, using that time to head out and gather some wild fuel to get fully prepared for cooking later. After tidying up, she found the dough had fully risen. She divided it into portions not too big and not too small. Though Lena looked quite young, she had a deep understanding of making dough foods. With smooth practiced movements and a few kneads, she shaped them perfectly into croissants. Then she dropped them into the pot to fry. From her technique alone, it was clear Lena was a natural in the art of dough. Once they were ready, her first meal outdoors had begun. The rundown house was without doubt a paradise for mozzies, so before bed, everything had to be cleaned properly. After a whole day of busyness, she was starting to feel tired. Thankfully, the previous owner had left a bed frame still in use, enough for Lena to rest soundly through the night. By the next morning, Lena slowly woke from her bed. Outside, the sun was shining bright. Even though this old rundown house gave off a cheap feeling, the surroundings were truly a prime spot. Lena packed her bags, tidied up the clutter inside, and got ready to head for her next destination to search for new chances. Maybe the next person who steps in here will enjoy a more comfortable place to stay. So you lot are still catching me at this hour. I honestly thought I was about to fade out again. Tonight, I won't bother guessing whose foot you've ended up on. Heard the bot comment system's been updated to version 4.2. Now you just need to hold down, slide to the emoji and send it off quick as you like. So I'll just guess whether my comments section has bots in it. Alright, enough rambling. Let's dive straight into tonight's bedtime story. Tonight's all about our old mate Rue and her camping special. This time she's in a lush grassy spot. You could still see the collagen glow on her face, just faintly showing through. Her makeup today was clearly a bit more polished than before. After another long trek, she'd been walking for half an hour, only to find the scenery all looked the same. Since she couldn't find the final destination, she decided to just set up camp where she was. Even though the tent space was limited, Rue's petite frame fit in just fine. After finishing the setup, it was time to make a picnic. Since she wasn't much of a cook and didn't want to waste her happy camping time, she went for instant food. Just tear open the packet, toss everything into the box, add some water and let it cook on its own. For this camping trip, Rue had even dressed up, and as a girl from Sichuan Chongqing, chili was of course an essential on her table. And because the self-heating pot was so oily, she took extra care to stay neat while eating. After half an hour of picnicking, the sky still hadn't turned to night. Feeling bored and a little restless, Rue decided to lie down early for a rest. If you've come across this video before bed, then mate, you've been caught out again. If I'm not wrong, you're already lying in bed, with one foot resting on top of the other. Now shift into a comfy position, and let's fully soak in this camping feast. Here's our main character, Lily. She's trekking through the wild in killer heels. Every time Lily goes camping, she chooses places far from people. They might be remote, but they're surrounded by lush green grass. Given the weather, finding a camp spot was urgent. After about 30 meters, she came to a closed-off track. The ground under the trees was a mess, but tossing down a few fertilizer sacks fixed it easily. Anyone who camps outdoors a lot would know, with all the loose rocks on the ground, you'll need a blanket underneath. That soft, furry feel makes it much more comfortable. Lily knows how to enjoy life, because up next comes the most important part of camping, a hearty picnic. She always carries a treasure box with her, packed full of camping gear. Though Lily's still a bit lacking in camping skills, when it comes to food, she's absolutely top-notch. The cooking may be simple in method, but it's full of color, aroma, and flavor. Right in front of her homemade ham and bright red eggs made up her picnic meal. Even though the camping spot wasn't exactly ideal, Lily was without doubt a beautiful sight herself. After eating, she decided to go for a walk to digest. The scenery here looked more like a historic landmark.
So you lot are still catching me at this hour. I honestly thought I was about to fade away again. Tonight, I won't bother guessing where your left foot's resting. As usual, if you see this, give me a shout, or just drop a few bot-style comments on the right. All right. Enough rambling. Let's dive straight into tonight's bedtime story. Here we've got Lena, who loves finding chances in the wild, walking through a forest shrouded in drizzle. On the way, she spotted ahead a unique shelter standing tall. Talk about luck. like nodding off and having a pillow handed over. After a quick look around, she found no one was living there, so she carefully stepped inside. Inside the space wasn't big, but it had all the basic facilities, because it hadn't been lived in for so long. The place was filthy and messy. A few broken floorboards made the ground look even more run down. So Lena decided she'd fully repair the inside. Just as she was about to climb the mountain in the rain to gather materials, she unexpectedly found in the corner a stack of planks left ready by the previous owner. Being someone who loves finding opportunities in the wild, she also had some basic carpentry skills up her sleeve. So Lena first cut the uneven planks into neat matching shapes, then slotted them into the missing floor gaps. To keep them steady, she hammered them down with nails. Then she carried on filling the other empty spots. As night quietly fell, the rain grew heavier and heavier. By then, Lena had already finished repairing the floor. She suddenly remembered the potted plant she'd brought along today, so she found it a suitable spot. The rain had softened the ground, so without much effort, she dug out a small pit, planted it steadily inside, and gently pressed the wet soil around it. Back inside, Lena began preparing dinner for herself. She lit the fireplace to drive away the damp chill of the rainy night, then took out the ingredients she'd planned to use. Having graduated from the New Oriental Culinary Institute, her knife skills were especially sharp. But just as she was about to close the door, the old quartz latch, left unmaintained for years, suddenly snapped. Lena had no choice but to rely on some makeshift repair skills. So for anyone camping without proper tools and know-how, it's best not to try this lightly. Once all that was done, she could finally throw herself into making dinner. Even with the heavy rain pouring outside, inside was still as cozy as ever. Deep in the vast forest stood a house where one could be alone. And inside there was a warm fireplace. In that moment, the sense of safety leapt to another level. Then Lena gently tapped the glass in her hand. A clear, lingering sound swirled through the small room. That ethereal note carried a power that touched the soul, seeping into every nerve. And with that, good night, everyone.